So I thought that I would explain to everybody a little bit more about my epistemology because I think it's important to be aware of the things that I'm getting ready to say, but also it might help out my opponents a little bit as they are less likely to get frustrated provided that they know my background and where I'm coming from. So this is why I believe what I do. I'm going to start at a very foundational level. And here we go. People have the capacity to lie. They often do. They also have the capacity to make mistakes, and they often do. And so, if I'm in a debate and somebody appeals to science or history, for example, I'm going to say, "How do you know that the scientists are right? And how do you know that the historian is telling you the truth about what happened in history?" And the reason that I'm going to do this is because debates are all about justification. You're trying to justify why your position is correct, and I'm trying to justify why my position is correct. And this can be a little bit difficult to do in a debate because how are you going to demonstrate science in a debate? Or how are you going to demonstrate history in a debate? Well, you can't. But allow me to go further and you'll get my point. So, in order to know that the scientists are right, or the historian's right, or the experts are right, or whatever you're appealing to, you first have to know what's right for yourself. Otherwise, you're just trusting them. And that's the truth of the matter. You're just trusting the scientists. If you've not actually studied it, looked at it through the telescope, looked at it through the microscope, run the test, did the lab in your little petri dishes, unless you've done all this stuff, you're just kind of trusting them. And I'm not saying that it's bad to trust them. I'm just saying that they could be lying to you and it's possible they made some honest mistakes. Okay? So that's how that works. Now, and this is how I operate. Now, people would ask, well, doesn't this limit you? And the answer is no, it doesn't limit me. Okay. And here's why: because my sphere is limited. I'm not an astronaut, an engineer, or historian. So I don't need the justifications for the engineering or the justifications for why the science works in such a way that I can be able to go to Mars or outer space. It doesn't matter to me, right? I'm in my little sphere, and those things, like, I don't have to know them, so it doesn't really limit me. But so what I do resort to in a debate, and I'll get to it a little bit later, but let me tell you what I will always resort to in a debate, and that's logic. And here's the reasons why: it's universal, meaning everybody can understand logic, or at least I would certainly hope so. But here's the thing: even if they don't already understand it, it's immediately demonstrable. Like, I can talk to them and actively demonstrate that the logic I'm using is good. Like, I can give them the justification right there on the spot. Okay, I don't have to trust anybody or pull out the microscope or any of this weird stuff. I can just explain it to them logically and they can get it. So it's immediately demonstrable, it's universal, everybody can understand it, and it therefore requires no faith. But if I'm in a debate and somebody brings up, well, history, or, well, scientists or whatever, I'm like, yeah, so you're putting a lot of faith in them, and that's nice. I just don't. Okay. Um, Now, people are going to be a little critical of this for different reasons. People will say things like, doesn't this just provide you with an out? In other words, James, when you're in a debate, you don't have to acknowledge any authority. That just kind of makes it easy for you. Well, no, yes and no, right? So it's true that I don't have to acknowledge what they put trust in. Like, I don't have to acknowledge that as an authority. But at the same time, I have to demonstrate everything. Okay? Like, I have to demonstrate everything. And if I can't, then I run out of tools with which to work. However, my opponent, they can just accept that the historians are telling the truth. They can just accept that the scientists are telling them the truth. They can just accept the people that conducted the statistics study. They can just accept a lot of things, and they don't have to justify everything. Whereas I can't just believe, and I actually do have to justify everything. And another criticism would be that, but James, don't you appeal to things in these things in debates like history? I've seen you do it. Well, so yeah, yes and no. So I will appeal to them, right? But if somebody says, like, that's not what happened, like if I refer to some point in history and they say that's not what happened, I'll just be like, okay. And the reason that I'm not going to argue it is because there's no way I can demonstrate that my history or my understanding of history is accurate over theirs, right? Because in that field, just using history as an example, they're going to say they're going to refer to their historians. I'm going to refer to my historians, or maybe my teacher, or what I was taught in college, or whatever it is, and they're going to refer to theirs. And so it's like it's just, well, who do you put your trust in? And that's not really justification. That's not needing to justify anything. You're just trusting them, right? So if I do appeal to one of these fields like science or history or statistics, when I do it, I'm using stuff that I consider or I would assume that is generally accepted. But if it's not generally accepted, or it's not accepted by my opponent at least, and they challenge it, I immediately drop it. I just say okay and move on. Because there's no way I could demonstrate that the historian that I'm referencing is telling the truth and his is not. There's no way I could do that. Um, so I just dismiss it, or I just say okay and move on. Um, Now, my discovery is that when because I've debated people for a long time, not necessarily because I expect them to have their mind changed, but I enjoy debate because I enjoy intellectual dialogue and so forth. But here's what I have found in debating with people and having discussions with people. And it's that people do not know how to respond when I point out that they just trust all these sources. They don't know how to respond when I point out that they just trust the scientists, they just trust the historians, they just trust the clergymen to interpret the Bible for them. They just trust them, that they did it right, that they didn't lie and they didn't make any honest mistakes. They don't know how to respond to that, because what that would require is that they have to go back and justify. Like if they were going to give me an intelligent response and attempt to justify it, well, they would have to do that, which is justify it, and they can't. And this seems to like disorient them. They don't know how to respond to me. Now, one of the differences between me and most people, in light of everything that I've just said, is that they have more faith that the people that they're trusting, ultimately the scientists, the historians, etc., they have more faith in those people, and I have less faith. And they're more inclined to trust those humans, and I'm less inclined. So I guess if I was going to sum all this up, I would do it like this. People have the capacity to lie, they often do. They have the capacity to make honest mistakes, and they often do. I simply don't trust them. Since you trust them, I'm going to ask you to justify it. And you may or may not be able to do that. Oftentimes you're not, and I understand that. That's fine. So we can just appeal to something else. And this is why I usually appeal directly to logic, because it's universal. Everybody can understand it. Everybody can engage in the process of reason. It's immediately demonstrable. It doesn't require any faith. It doesn't really provide me with an out because I have to justify everything, whereas they can just believe. And if I do appeal to something, it's something generally concepted. If you challenge it, I'll just give it to you that, okay, I'm wrong. Like I'll just, even though I don't necessarily believe that I'm wrong, for in the debate, I'll just drop it. I'll be like, okay, and then I'll have to go to a stronger source, which is demonstrable, which is logic. I don't find that this cripples me in any way. People don't know how to respond when I just point out that, hey, you're just trusting them. You're trusting the scientists. You're trusting, like, if I debate a Christian, they're like, well, the Christians that like are in the positions of authority, the Bible scholars and all this, they've done all this rigorous study and they came to this conclusion. I'm like, okay, that's great, but you're trusting that they didn't make any mistakes. They're not lying. That's great. I don't. So what's your justification? And they don't know how to handle it because they don't know the Bible themselves to be able to justify their positions. They can't explain it, whereas I can. And it would be the same as if I was debating a different topic that has nothing to do with the Bible. I'm able to demonstrate it. They can't. And this disorients them, and they don't know how to respond to it. But yeah, that's ultimately the sum up of it. People have more faith in other people than I do. I have less faith, and that's how it all boils down to. And so when I debate somebody, I'm debating from that perspective, that people lie intentionally, and they can be honestly deceived. And if we're in a debate, it's all about justifications. So you can either justify it or you can't. And since I'm always appealing to logic, which is immediately demonstrable, I usually do pretty well, at least as far as I can tell. Now, other people may disagree with that, and that's quite fine, but that's my epistemology. Hope that made sense and was clear. You all enjoy that. If you would like to debate me, please let me know, like and subscribe. We can get you in here, hopefully, and we can debate something fun. I'm after generating educational content that is thought provoking and useful in some way. I don't intend really that or expect that I'm going to convince anybody by logical arguments. People don't really change their mind because of evidence. Usually people just believe what they want to believe. I mean, talking in general, I know there are some exceptions, but people generally just believe what they want to believe, and evidence doesn't really matter to them because if evidence is contrary to what they want to believe, they just dismiss the evidence. But yeah, please like and subscribe, get in contact with me, and we can have some fun. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.